For the first couple years of my playing, Strats were all I played. Everyone knows how iconic the Fender Stratocaster is, and chances are you've owned one. But if you're new to the Stratocaster or even the guitar itself, I'd like to share with you some things that I've learned over the years playing these and 5 tips to help you get the sound that you want out of your guitar. Whether you're into blues, rock, funk, or anything in between, in my opinion, this is one of the most versatile and expressive guitars ever made. So let's talk about the Fender Stratocaster. When the Fender Stratocaster came out in 1954, it completely changed everything. From its new contoured body design, tremolo bridge, and 3 pickup design, this was probably the most innovative guitar at that time. It was comfortable, dynamic, and gave players a new level of control that they just didn't have available at that time. Players like Jimi Hendrix, Buddy Holly, Eric Clapton, John Mayer, David Gilmour, and many others helped shape the sound that we all know so familiar of the Fender Stratocaster. I've owned a bunch of Strats over the years, and like I mentioned before, I used to only play Stratocasters. I used to take apart my own just to see how everything worked and put them back together to get them playing right. And it actually pioneered my interest into guitar building and tech work and led me to where I am today. So for that, I do have to thank the Fender Stratocaster design. The very first one I bought with my own money was a Mexican-made Strat that looked like David Gilmour's. I was a huge Pink Floyd fan and just dove into a lot of his music and technique at that time. Eventually, I had a couple other ones. One of the nicer ones that I had was the John Mayer signature Strat that I sold maybe about a year ago, and which led me to settle on this parts caster. It's got a little bit of aging, got some Joe Bonamassa pickups. I have a video of me installing these and doing a sound test demo if you want to check that out. And here's the thing, you don't need a vintage, custom shop, or very expensive high-end Stratocaster style guitar for these things to apply. You can use these on any Strat style guitar, no matter what model or price point that you're playing. So if your Strat doesn't sound right or feel right, here are 5 things that I've learned over the years to help you dial it in. My name's Chris Ellis, thank you so much for stopping by, and let's dive into the Stratocaster. Tip number 1 is your pickup height. Notice how mine are all relatively low, and I think, in my opinion, that's where they sound the best. Unlike the humbucker, which only has 2 bar magnets, these single coils have 6 pull pieces which are all magnetized. So if you put these pickups too high, the magnetic field is going to want to pull on those strings even more. So by lowering your pickup and having enough space in between gives you a more clear, defined sound. So try that out on your Stratocaster if you notice that your pickups are too high or you don't have enough clarity in your tone. Tip number 2 is using your volume and your tone knobs. Believe it or not, these are here for a reason, and you can get such a wide variety of tones by using these. Don't be afraid to play with different pickup positions and control settings. The one thing that I like to do if my Strat is inherently bright or if it's just too bright for what I'm doing at that moment, I'll just roll the tone knob back to about 7, and that usually fattens it up or just takes some of the highs out, but it still has that Stratocaster character. Another thing you can do if it's overly bright or too harsh, you can actually roll the volume back to about 7 or 8 and it'll tame it just a little bit more. A cool trick you can do with this is you can also use this as a way to clean up your overdrive sounds. So if you have an overdrive on or distortion pedal and you have a good wiring harness in here, if you roll it back to about 7, it should clean up your tone. So instead of having to step on a pedal, you can just roll your volume up, adding all that gain for your lead or solo tone. And if you apply this to every pickup position, so you have 5 pickup positions and 2 tone knobs and a volume, you should be able to get a variety of different sounds. And tip number 3, since we're talking about our tone knobs, is having your bridge pickup wired to the back tone pot. A lot of new models will already have this as a standard feature, but for some of the vintage ones, and even for actual vintage ones, they were not hooked up to this back tone pot. Bridge pickups can be kind of harsh, so it's a really cool trick to tame that a little bit. Again, I like to run that around 7 for myself. I found that works best for me, but experiment with however you want to set up your guitar. It's been incredibly useful to tame a hot bridge pickup and also make it sound a little more fatter and not as thin. And it's super simple to do. You don't even really need to know how to solder, but it really helps if you do. I'll show you the diagram right now. All you have to do is on your 5-way switch is solder a wire on these 2 lugs right here. And if you don't know how to solder, that's okay. If you tightly wind it, it should hold since there's not a lot of movement going on there, but it's always best to have a good solid connection when it comes to any wiring for the guitar. But yeah, all you have to do is hook up a wire between these 2 lugs on your 5-way switch and you're good to go. Try to think of what you want to create with your guitar and whether or not you want a floating or set bridge. Stratocasters are very unique in the fact that they have a floating tremolo system, and that is caused by springs in the back countering the pressure of the strings pulling forward. So if you don't want to use it, you can just tighten this claw all the way up and that will pull the bridge down to the body. But if you want to use it, you just got to back this claw out so that the bridge will actually float and you can use the vibrato technique forward and backwards. This is a great way to further express yourself on a guitar. And if you don't want to do that, but you've noticed that there's some extra ringing that's happening while you're playing, you can't figure out where it's coming from, sometimes it's coming from the actual spring. So as you're playing the guitar, it's vibrating through the body and it's coming through the springs back here. You can kind of hear it coming out the back. If you just get a little piece of foam and slide it underneath there, that should deaden the springs from vibrating so much and take that away. So there's an extra tip for you. And the 5th and final tip I'll share with you is something that I apply on all my guitars, but it's set your amp EQ settings to your neck pickup. This tends to be the pickup that's the bassiest with the most low end, especially for humbuckers. So if you set it to where you have full clarity on your rhythm pickup, then all the other pickups should have a clarity to them with ease. And then you can dial those harsh brightness or highs back with your tone knobs or your volume pot. If you set up your amp for just your lead tone, which is on your bridge pickup, and you make it sound really juicy and fat, and there's a lot of low end and it sounds really great, as soon as you go to that neck pickup, all that clarity is going to be lost and it's going to be really hard to hear you through the mix. So one thing I always do, and I always recommend to everybody else, something that I do personally, is set my amps to my neck pickup. That way I know everything else will be clear and will cut through when I'm playing live. And I just think the neck pickup sounds great. It's my favorite pickup on any guitar. So if you feel like your neck pickup just isn't giving you what you want, try to dial your amp in so that this sounds nice and clear, and hopefully that makes all the other positions and things that you want to play and hear much more clear and even better than before. So real quick, I'd like to talk about how this guitar shaped my playing. The reason that I love the Stratocaster so much is because of the players that inspired me to pick up the guitar, which were John Mayer, David Gilmour, and Stevie Ray Vaughan. And admittedly, I didn't know about Stevie Ray Vaughan until I started listening to John Mayer. I knew that John Mayer was a big blues fan and a great blues player while I was listening to the Continuum album and learning all that, and found out that one of his heroes was Stevie Ray Vaughan. So I thought, well, I better listen to more Stevie Ray Vaughan, and by that time my world just exploded. Like many other guitar players, I wanted to play just like him, learn all the licks that I could, and found out that I was not going to be the next Stevie, and that's okay. But from there, I got to understand, well, where was Stevie's influence, and then I got to learn about Albert King, which led me into Freddie King and B.B. King, which totally opened up my world. So really, this guitar wasn't just a vehicle for me to express myself, but it also carved a pathway for me to find new music and experience new things and create new ideas. So even though I don't play a Strat much anymore, it shaped so much of who I am that I had to keep at least one in my collection, and this is the one that I'm connecting with right now. So glad to have at least one. You got to have at least one good Strat. So I think the biggest thing that I've learned owning a Stratocaster is just how expressive a guitar can be. All these great players, Jimi Hendrix, Stevie Ray Vaughan, John Mayer, Eric Clapton, David Gilmour, they all play the Stratocaster or have played at one point, and yet they all sound so different. There's so many unique options that you can have. The neck pickup is Stevie Ray Blues. Fourth position, these two, is total John Mayer. The middle pickup, which I think everyone sleeps on, is a great solo tone, and I'm sure many people use it. Position 2, Mark Knopfler from Dire Straits. And the bridge with the tone rolled back is Eric Johnson. I mean, there's just so many great players that play this guitar, and they all have a very unique sound. They have their voice. So it's just really cool that all that can come from one guitar. Whether you vibe with it or not, it's definitely worth checking out. But the one thing that took me away from the Strat is I noticed that I was playing the same licks. I was trying to be a Stevie copy, and every time I pick one up, even now, I have to break the habit of not doing that. But it's really refreshing learning on new guitars and coming up with new ideas, and taking those ideas that I've learned and coming back to this guitar and applying them. It makes this feel like a brand new guitar that I'm getting sounds that I've never heard before, and it's becoming a real articulate instrument. So that's always something to keep in mind, that while you might be burnt out on one sound on one guitar, pick something else up, learn some new things, and then come back to it, and you might be surprised with how inspired you are to play. So I hope that makes sense. I hope these tips will guide you into creating your sound on this instrument. And remember to always be curious. Thanks for hanging out. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what kind of strats you have and what tweaks have worked for you. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks.